Eskom has suspended rolling blackouts. It says this follows the recovery of generation capacity and the replenishment of emergency reserves. The power utility implemented stage 2 rolling blackouts yesterday. It says the power system is now stable and it will continue with its planned maintenance. We've now roped in energy expert Ruse Moleshe to weigh in on the current developments in the country's energy supply. Ruse, a very good afternoon to you and thank you so much for your time. Let's start with your understanding of the unscheduled load shedding that was implemented yesterday by Eskom following the loss of 5 generating units. I mean, the concern, of course, is around the system's reliability just ahead of the winter months.
Yes, sorry. Excuse me. Yes, the Eskom system has been improving significantly, but I think we always caution consumers to note that there's always still a risk that something could go wrong, because the total system in South Africa is not foolproof just yet. And that means that we don't have significant reserve capacity to be able to carry us when things go wrong. So Eskom has got a significant capacity that is out on planned maintenance, preparing for the winter period. And then when the breakdowns happen and they are significant, they have to use reserve or emergency capacity. When that is used to the maximum, you have nothing else to rely on. So that is why you see problems happening. If you will recall, the president's plan, which is the Energy Action Plan, relied heavily on Eskom. However, it was not looking only at Eskom as the solution. It was looking at regional electricity coming in. It was looking at private sector entities coming in. But those are constrained due to transmission infrastructure issues. And the region is also constrained. I mean, some of the countries on the north are facing their own constraints. For instance, Zambia facing constraints with supply. So the solution is not foolproof yet. But what brings comfort for winter is potentially the fact that now the 7,500 megawatts that is now under maintenance by end of March will be released back to provide supply to cater for the large demand that is expected. So that provides some comfort, but you always have a risk that something can go wrong.
And I was going to ask, I mean, notwithstanding, of course, the system's improvements, how concerned is Eskom, do you think, in the series of unit failures? I mean, last month, the utility implemented stages 6 and 4 following those setbacks. Earlier this month, also another stage, I think it was load shedding stage 3, where I think in February, there were about 10 units that had failed. I mean, notwithstanding, of course, the good news in terms of the strengthening of the system, there is, as you rightfully put, that risk, particularly as we head to the winter months.
Yes, there remains a risk, and what we were told with respect to those first incidents was that it relates to auxiliary services, which is more secondary infrastructure than your big generators and your big turbines. But you are seeing this creeping in over time. So it could be that it's not major equipment, but also in terms of personnel and how the things are working out. So Eskom needs to go through the layers and layers of risk management. And now that they've had a success in terms of bringing in large generation capacity, what is it that can go wrong that relates to now human errors and all these smaller things, but that have a big impact on the system? So yes, Eskom work is not done. But when you have a reserve capacity that is sufficient, when you experience such thing, typically that comes in. If you look at Europe, if something goes wrong in the UK, and recently there was an incident where supply was very tight relative to demand. But because they have interconnectors with other regional countries, they are able to have backup from those systems. We don't have that kind of cushion, which is why as a robust plan for the country should not only be looking at one solution, but should look at a solution that is foolproof and has a cushion for anything that goes wrong.
I mean,
so we're not yet there.
Yeah, I mean, this latest load shedding has again renewed those calls calling for a competitive energy generation market. When you talk about this robust plan, parallel, could we do something then in as far as that is concerned? In other words, a new generation capacity to be built, as some are calling, including political parties like the DA?
Well, we've been calling for gas to be brought in, but if you look at the plans, they are there, but are they realistic? Are they bankable? Are they credible? We've been calling for regional infrastructure, but does the regional infrastructure allow for any exports to South Africa or imports coming in? That infrastructure is constrained significantly. The IPPs, even if they can bring some capacity, although intermittent, they still have a problem with transmission infrastructure, which solution is going to take a few years to be addressed, many years actually to be addressed. So we are relying now only on Eskom. Yes, we called as analysts for Eskom to be resolved, but we understood that you still need to have capacity in addition to Eskom to back up should things go wrong. So we're going to have calls every time something goes wrong in Eskom because something will go wrong.
Unfortunately. Thank you so much, Ruse, for your insights. Energy expert there, Ruse Moleshe, just weighing in on the latest round of load shedding implemented by Eskom yesterday.